Good morning. Happy holidays. I'm Taylor Hemness here from KSHB 41. Recording this a couple of days before the week leading up to Christmas. This episode will come out for the month of December on the Sunday before Christmas. First, a little story, and then I'll tell you about what we're doing for this month. Been doing Faith in KC now for about a year, and a little more than a year, and it's been really incredible to talk to some of the people I've had a chance to talk to have some of the conversations I've had. Have enjoyed all of them and have enjoyed interacting with a lot of viewers on some of the thoughts that they've had about it. Did not do one on Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving, didn't do one for November. And honestly was starting to think, how much longer do I need to do these? How much longer do I want to do these? And didn't get around to doing one in November. A member of the staff here at KSHB 41, a coworker of mine, who was very quick to tell me that he doesn't consider himself to be really a religious person. He is one of the most hard-edged people here, which is saying something because we're a building full of hard-edged people in some cases. That same day that I was thinking, I don't know how long I'll keep doing this, came to me and asked, hey, are you still doing Faith in KCs? I really enjoy all those episodes. And it was kind of a, hey, pay attention moment, and please continue to be able to share some of the stories around faith in Kansas City. And so I was glad for that reminder. I apologize I didn't have one in November. Happy to have one in December, and we'll hopefully continue to have them moving forward for hopefully a while. All that being said, for this December episode, I wanted to talk about giving, and I wanted to talk about talk to the agency I think most of us correlate with giving around this time of year, and that's the Salvation Army. If you're like me, I had honestly was not sure the Salvation Army was faith-based. I don't know why I didn't have that for certain in my head or where I lost it along the way, but it is. So this month's guest is Major Kelly Collins. She's the divisional commander for Kansas and Western Missouri, to talk about red kettles and angel trees. This is our Christmas tree here at the station that had 25 angels on it at one point for our staff here to come and get. She talks about her faith journey. She talks about what it's like to work a red kettle around this time of year. She talks about what it's like to feel like she has to continue ringing those bells after Christmas, and what it's like to almost get a vibe of people forgetting that giving mentality once January rolls around. So I really enjoyed my conversation with Major Collins. I hope you will as well. Please, as always, email me, let me know who my next guest should be, who else I should talk to or talk about or talk with. You can email me at taylor.hemness@kshb.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of it there that you can reach out to me. But please leave your comments as always. I welcome them, especially those that are the most civil. And I really hope that if you're in a situation where you are dependent on giving this year, I hope that you get what you and your family need to have a happy holiday. If you are in a situation where you're able to give this holiday season, I hope you do that in abundance as well. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and enjoy this episode of Faith in KC. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Major Kelly Collins this morning. Major Collins, thank you for your time. I know this is likely a very busy time of year, so I appreciate you taking some time to spend with me this morning. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's talk about this time of year for you. What is it like to work and lead the Salvation Army during Christmas time?
During Christmas time, it's a little hectic. It's very hectic because we're serving people year round, but it's our major fundraising time. It's also the time that we serve more people. Our officers who are out, a Salvation Army officer is the ones who are out there in the field, as we say. We're using our military language. And they are out there running the kettles, making sure that they have all of the kettles out, making sure that the money is deposited correctly, having a time to, they're often interviewed to tell what's going on. They are meeting more people who need assistance during Christmas time, as well as gathering toys and food and making sure they're distributed to the right people. So it's chaotic. And the field officers in particular are so exhausted. But years ago, I said to a brand new Salvation Army officer, are you surviving Christmas? And she said to me something I will never forget. She said, if I'm just surviving it, I'm doing it wrong. So it is very busy, but it's such a joy to be serving people in this way. So that's what it's like. It's kind of hard to explain.
I'm sure.
Are always welcome to come experience it, though.
How did you come to be part of the Salvation Army? How long have you been part of the Army, and how did you come to be part of it?
I am a fifth generation Salvation Army, what we call Salvationist. I'm a fourth generation Salvation Army officer. So this is all I have ever known. I grew up in the Salvation Army. My husband and I became ordained as Salvation Army officers 35 years ago. And so this is really all I've ever known. It is not only my church, it's my culture, it's my work. We jokingly say that we bleed red, yellow, and blue, which is our color of our flag.
I have to admit, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit, that I had to double check for myself when reaching out to you that the Salvation Army was a faith-based organization. Obviously, it provides great need and helps people from all walks of life. But I was not certain for some reason. I guess I'd never really been sure that's where it comes from. Obviously, this is a faith-based conversation we're having here and issues of faith across town. Do you feel like most people are aware there's a faith correlation between the Salvation Army's work as it's compared to other nonprofits that are helping people all around the world?
Not only do I feel that they are not aware, I know for certain they're not aware. And I've come to realize in my 35 years of officership that a lot of times we in the Salvation Army have felt bad about that, like we've caused it to some degree. But I have come to realize that unless, like I just said, with all of the chaos, unless people experience it, it just does not click. What they see is kettles at Christmas, the public, thrift stores, maybe emergency disaster services. But our denomination as a church is quite small. But that is why we do what we do. Our mission statement says that we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and meet human need in his name without discrimination. That's why we do what we do. But we also, the locations where people reach out for assistance are our churches. The officers with red on their shoulder mean they are ordained ministers. And we have been in existence since 1865 out of London, England. And our founders, William and Catherine Booth, he was an ordained United Methodist minister. And at the time in London, it was an elitist type of church at that location. You'd have to pay for your pew. You'd have to, people that were undesirable in somebody's eyes were not accepted in the church. So William Booth just decided he's going to preach on the street corner, but he had no intention of starting his own denomination, but it grew up in that way. So I say all that because we tell our story, but unless people see it, they still really only experience the kettles and the thrift stores, and that's okay. We don't make any excuses, but we don't spend our time advertising.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, obviously, everyone's understanding level is going to be different of who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. And to your point, I think probably the average person, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the average person is aware of the kettles and Salvation Army, and that may be about where it stops. I've got my $5 or $10 or $100 or whatever I'm going to put in this kettle, and then I've moved on, and I don't necessarily think anymore about it. Is there from what you've seen in your 30 plus years of doing this, is there a different feeling or relationship between the Army and the people who give to it based on their awareness of that faith-based background? Is it different at all if someone's more aware of really the why of what you're doing?
I think those who give, many of them who give at least in larger amounts that we can track, like through our direct mail and just white mail, people just sending donations. I think a lot of times they are more aware than the general public knows, because if something happens that they don't like, how can you do that? You're a Christian organization. So I think a lot of them of people are aware. It's kind of a yes and no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is the mission any different at Christmas time? And whether the answer to that can be, if it's yes, it can be for any number of reasons. If it's because more people are aware of where you are and have more interaction with you than maybe they do, because obviously you're not just a Christmas organization. You work around the clock to help people all over. But is the vibe, is the mission, what's different about this several week period for the Salvation Army when it comes to what it's like to be around there, to interact with people? What's unique about this several week period?
Yeah, I can say to some degree, yes, the mission is a little different during this period. Not that we have changed our mission statement or our goals, but as I said, we seek to meet human need in Jesus' name. Throughout the year, a lot of times that means Sunday worship, Bible study on Wednesday night, youth programming on Tuesday, or it might not be those days, but those kinds of activities.
Sure.
We are really being the hands and feet of Jesus, even more visibly and more intentionally during this season. And I think rather than building the church, we're building the kingdom a little more intentionally. So it's less programming and it's more meeting human need in his name. It's more face-to-face, nitty-gritty. I think what Jesus was doing. He didn't say, wait, we need to stop because it's this festival, because we need to go to the synagogue. He was just out there working with the people. And I think it is different in a good way. Yeah.
One of the reasons I was so interested and excited about speaking to you is not just because of your position, but because of how long you've been doing what you're doing. And I wanted to ask you specifically about that word need that you just said. Has the definition of that word changed for you in 30 plus years of doing this? Now that you have seen exactly what it means and what it can mean and what it doesn't mean, has the definition of that word changed for you in 30 plus years of being part of the Army?
Maybe not changed, but expanded, been intensified, let's say.
Yeah.
So I've always known, I learned in my training period when we would, back then, we would go door to door with our magazines at Christmas time and a collection box. And we would go to, we were in Chicago, we'd go to Winnetka, where Home Alone was filmed. So it was really, I'm trying, what is the word? Influential, people who had, people of means, let's say that. Yes. We'd go door to door. And at one point, went to a door and someone said, I can't give anything to the Salvation Army. And when you peek into their house, this huge house, no furniture, they're just making ends meet.
Wow.
So people oftentimes, that told me, and I learned this over and over again, you cannot see the need externally. We've had people drive up in their Cadillacs to get toys for their kids. And we tell the volunteers, the employees, the officers, do not judge them. They might be living in that Cadillac. That might be the last thing they own. And they're going home, maybe to a shelter, maybe to another family member. Those were stories we've known forever, but we see it even more now. And need, we are serving people in these last 2 years in particular who don't even know how to navigate the system. I mean, there is a clear system, and some folks, sadly, have had to do this their entire lives. In fact, one of our main programs is to help people get out of generational poverty. But there are people who are not in generational poverty, and all of a sudden they have been hit with, I need help and I don't even know where to turn. How do I process this? How do I apply? Where do I get food? So need continues, but it's different faces now. People who didn't have any idea they would ever have to ask for assistance.
People who've watched this series before, seen other prior episodes, have heard me say that I'm a person of faith. I was raised in the church, and this is where I remind people this series is not about talking people into or out of anything or changing anyone's mind about anything. It's just about talking about different issues. But I should be more involved in, for lack of a better term, evangelism and missionary work than I have been in my life. I know people of faith who are dynamic, missionary-minded, going into situations, and that's never been my forte. And I don't have a good reason for that. I should be a lot better than that. But the times that I have done so, I'm reminded of how I felt when doing it. And I think of two ways that me or maybe someone else listening can think about the way they felt after giving or after taking part or volunteering. Gosh, it feels so nice to help someone. A. B, did I do anything? Did I move the needle at all? Because I know I felt that way after going and taking part in some sort of act or giving or anything like that. When you are doing what you're doing, and speaking for you and all the people who work for the Salvation Army, as a life, this is not just I'm going to dip in and take part in this for a little while. Do you encounter both of those? I'm sure there's tons of emotions, but both of those on a regular basis. Does it feel sometimes like, gosh, we're doing amazing work? And does it feel like sometimes there's more than I can ever do? There's more need than I can ever meet. What's it like to be aware of both ends of the spectrum there?
Oh, absolutely. There's both ends of the spectrum. I mean, we believe, as it says in the Bible, that when one person puts their faith in Jesus, there is rejoicing in heaven. And that is, we want to share that good news, but that is a time of rejoicing. It's also a time of rejoicing when people can say, thank you for sharing hope in my life and getting me out of generational poverty. And I now have a job and a home. And I know it's because of your faith and your hope in Jesus that you've guided me here. But we also, like any social ministries is what we call it, see people using the system. Are they just going to come and get food? Is it right? What you said, have we moved the needle any further? Have we made any difference in this person's life? Are we just enabling them? Are we just handing out food? Do they even know who we are and why we're doing it? Do they even know that salvation is part of our name on purpose? Our job is to continue serving, whether people know it or not. It's our job to say why we do it, not shove it down anyone's throat, not make people like, we're only going to give you this food if you will join us in our faith journey. But we want to say why we do what we do. But it does get discouraging at times. I mean, when you see the same people month in and month out, we know their names in those small towns, especially. Here they come again for the food. But it's worth it. I've said to our volunteers, our employees, our officers, if we get taken advantage of, I would rather do that than turn someone away. It's not. And I hope they know why we do what we do. I've told the story. It's an old book now, Out of the Salt Shaker and Into the World. There's a story in there where someone said, and it's an evangelism book. Something is different about you. What is different about you? Are you a vegetarian? So we could all be nice people, and people think, oh, they're vegetarians, or they're just a good social service agency, or they're whatever. We want to be able to tell why we do what we do, and hopefully, that's out of our control. Then, if people join with us in our faith, it's our desire. But that's not my job. That's God's job.
Well, I was going to ask because I'm trying to, as you were answering that, I was trying to think of another profession or whatever I could think of other than a service-oriented thing where you have to almost think of the thing that's in your hands, whatever your product may be. In your case, it's service to people, as something that once I'm letting go of, I can't necessarily worry about where it goes. And something you said earlier about telling people that have worked for you or volunteered about the Cadillac, that, hey, he may be living in that Cadillac. Hey, that you can't judge that. I can't imagine the challenge that must be, even for someone as veteran as yourself, but especially someone new to the Salvation Army who has difficulty looking at this thing they're holding in their hands that they're trying to give to people. And then as soon as it's out of their hands, not caring as much about it anymore, if that's the right way to put it, but not
Right.
getting so attached to, here's this thing that I've done for you, or this thing that I've given to you. It sounds like you're describing being more attached to the person than to the product. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. However, we do have some systems in place to ensure, I can't say ensure, to try to not enable bad, destructive behavior. For instance, I just had a conversation with a woman 2 nights ago who said, can you give me some advice on a friend who gets a stack of 20s and passes them out to the people she sees panhandling on the street? And I try to explain to her that might not be a good idea. They might be using that money for things that you don't want them to. So that's one reason we don't give out $20 bills to people. If people want food, we'll provide the food. If they want housing, we'll provide the housing. We'll provide utilities to an extent. But so we have to let go and say, here's what we're going to provide. But we do it intentionally, strategically, knowing that we're working with people who have a variety of concerns, some with mental illness, some who are involved in substance abuse. We don't want to enable them to harm themselves further. So we do strategically and thoughtfully assist in ways that we hope will be sustainable long-term.
Yeah. I keep coming back to Christmas because this is, after all, the December episode of this. I'm really curious about your mindset. We've talked a little bit about what it's like working there at Christmas and the vibe around and the work you're doing, but I'm really curious about your mindset from an administrative point of view, and what you're doing is leading the local unit for Salvation Army, both leading up to the holiday season and immediately following. Because in my head, it feels like leading up to, you're almost thinking, okay, we've got to get as much bang for our buck here. This is our prime season where people are, not only is the need great, but people are more inclined potentially to give.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, immediately, do you almost feel like it's everything you can do not to wave flags at people and saying, yes, Christmas is over, but we're still over here. The need is still going. I'm curious about that mindset for you, right up and leading up to the holiday season, knowing what's ahead of you, and immediately after. Is that it? Do you experience any of those thoughts?
We do. And interestingly, when you say leading up to the holidays, we're planning Christmas season fundraising in end of July, early August.
Sure.
What partners are we going to contact? What volunteers are we going to refresh? What strategies are we going to have? One of the things that we've done in the past, we were told when I first was an officer that we were never allowed to pay for advertising. That was a taboo. I'm not even sure why, but that's been shifted because we want to tell our story. Even, I mean, and it helps the community when we're paying for that as well. So as we're gearing up, we're always trying to think of things in a new and fresh way to tell the story. I mean, we have videos out there that talk about this is year round. We're going to be having all those hundreds of kids come to our summer camp for next to nothing because they can't go anywhere else for camp. We're going to still be having our music programs throughout the year. We're still sheltering people. We're still paying for utilities throughout the year. We have videos. We tell our story, and we try to kick that up a notch during Christmas to tell people, but we also tell the story in other ways afterwards. But you're right, it is a mindset, and we try to tell it throughout the year. We have a civic luncheon that happens in April, another opportunity to say that, but new ways of doing it. We now have a QR code on our kettle stands, which is a new way of doing things. We have a new partnership with the chiefs to try to expand that visibility and knowing that we collaborate with other people. So it is a little not concerning, but it is very much in our minds that oftentimes December 25th comes and Salvation Army, they're shut down for the season.
Right.
And we do our best to keep our story out there, but spend most of our energy actually doing what we do.
Yeah. What's it like to work a red kettle? I'm sure you've done it more than once in your 35 years.
I have.
What's it like to stand at a red kettle and work as people walk by? Both the people who choose to give with a big smile on their face and a Merry Christmas, and the people who, for one reason or another, this is not a judgment because I've walked by those kettles too, the people who do walk by. What's it like to stand there and encounter people?
First of all, physically, it's really taxing.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the weather is perfect, you stand there and ring a bell for 8 hours. It can be mind numbing. I'm a cornet player, and it is mouth numbing that way. And it can be taxing because it can be really boring because not a lot of activity is happening. Yeah. However, it's also it's very encouraging how people are so probably 98% of people are so welcoming and joyful and accommodating and gracious to the bell ringers. It's wonderful to engage with kids. They love to ring the bell. They love to put money in, and you can see the joy in their faces. Then there are people who can be stinky and they say rude things. I'll pay you to stop playing that cornet. I'll give you money if you stop playing that, making that noise, or yell at a bell ringer for something that they don't like about the Salvation Army, whatever that is that year. And they're a volunteer or they're an employee, and they have to endure that. But it's and then you see all kinds of crazy things. I do have a friend who says, I want to pitch a television show called Kettle Gigs because you tell me all these crazy stories. But yeah, it can be entertaining as well. But it's like any public job, if you will. It can be really slow, but it can be joyful. It can also be heartbreaking. Yeah. And then the things we find in the kettles can be heartbreaking. People putting a wedding ring in there as just the things we find in there, notes of despair. And then people giving gold coins to try to spread the joy. So it is a variety of emotions during Christmas at a kettle.
What would prevent the Salvation Army? Why not have a red kettle outside the mall all year round? Why just for a few weeks at a time. We're all familiar right around Thanksgiving time. They're going to show up or a little bit before, and they're going to be there for a little while. Then they're going to go away. What would prevent the Salvation Army? Wouldn't there be some good of leaving it around all year?
I want to say three things, and I'm hoping I remember all three of them by the time I get to the third. Number one, the only reason we can be out there as we are is the generosity and the graciousness of the stores, whether they're corporate or local, allowing us to be there. So many of the locations, we have had to broker a contract with the major corporate locations. And we're even now told you can only ring this many days, you can only start this time, you can end this day. So that's a big reason. Secondly, would be donation fatigue. I mean, already it's like a white noise. We don't, we want it to be like, oh, there they are again, rather than here they still are. Oh yeah, there is a kettle there. And thirdly, I don't think you would want to be out inside a store and hear a bell ringing constantly for a full year.
Right.
It can be, thank the Lord for the people who are inside those stores, hearing that bell ring over and over and over again.
But it's supposed to be special, is what it sounds like you're saying. It's supposed to be. Yeah.
And a fourth reason, and a new reason, we are struggling so much this year. Getting people to stand at kettles, whether we pay them, which we always have in most locations, people who are not employed throughout the year, this is their one time to work. And that is a real ministry to them. But the volunteers, we are so down in volunteers and employees that we have kettles that are padlocked to the stands, which really bring in almost nothing because people don't even see them. So if we had to rely on that throughout the year, it would be unsustainable.
So I want to go back to something you just said there, because I think we're all familiar with, for lack of a better term, the appearance of the people who are ringing the bell kind of runs the gamut. There might be someone who looks like $1 million wearing a suit like I am right now, and there might be someone who is nowhere near that as far as what they're wearing and what their appearance looks like. You're telling me that some of those folks, that might be their job for December and they don't know what's next come January?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, we have a program called Safe from Harm. We do background checks. We make sure that these people are safe, but many of them are struggling in many ways. Many of them are our clients throughout the year, needing assistance, and this is their only income that they have raised personally. We have people who have done this for decades, and they're so proud of themselves, but they can't hold a job in other ways. And yes, sometimes they're not as put together as other people, but it's a ministry to them as well.
Tell me about the angel tree, because that's another thing that is, I think most people, red kettle number one, angel tree probably somewhere behind that. Those trees full of children.
Right.
I know my wife always, we have 3 boys. My wife always wants to get a girl. She's like, I never get to buy little girl presents. I always want a girl on there. That to me, visually, has always felt a little bit different, because I can pass by a red kettle and I have no idea how much money's in it. I don't know what's been given. I don't know if it's been a really successful one. To your point, there's some out there that no one's manning. I don't know if there's not very much in that. But I can pass by an angel tree and see it full. And that's a literal person on every one of those little stickers. Just tell me about the feeling and the thought process and what angel tree is like this time of year.
We are able to give toys to kids in two primary ways. And one of them is the angel tree, where there is a name for a child, what they want for Christmas.
Right.
And the joy of people shopping for this anonymous person, thinking about this 8-year-old girl opening her Barbie doll that would not have been there the joy of that child, the joy of that parent, the joy of the giver is phenomenal. Fortunately, the generosity of this community, and I've seen it throughout the country actually, with people giving toys, other than the specifics like that. Then if there's an angel still on a tree, those kids still will get a toy, and a volunteer will take that angel and go shop, if you will, with the donations that are given in those boxes for a Season of Hope, and giving and shop for those specific toys, and they will still get them. One of the challenges with the angel tree, people want to be overly generous. So this kid, 12-year-old Susie, will get double what she asked for. And then her brother, who the donor, will give exactly what they asked for. And we have to be really careful to make it equitable and make sure that they get the same kinds of attention for the entire family. But in addition to the angel tree, in years past, we also have had toy shops where the parents can come in, and they walk through the toys that are laid out by age and gender, and they can choose toys for their children. And
free of charge. Well, shop, but not spend any money, right?
Right. Free of charge. We also then provide, that's another opportunity for us to say, we're here year round. We can help you with other things. One of the saddest things that showed me, and I'm a little off track here, but one of the impactful stories at one of those toy shops a few years ago, my job was to greet people. So I greeted this woman who was waiting with her bag to get toys for her children. She said, "I'm so excited. My daughter is going to be old enough next year to do this for her own children. And my mom did this too." And I thought, that's not the goal. That's not the goal, to be excited that you need help from us. We want you to be able to go to the store by yourself because you have housing for yourself. You have a job, a sustainable job. And that's the goal of our Pathway of Hope program, to say, the goal isn't for you to be able to get things given to you. We will do that, but wouldn't it be better? It's that whole teach them to fish or give them a fish. Because the goal is for them to be able to be on their own.
Shameless plug, KSHB 41, proud to be partnering with Salvation Army for Season of Hope. So
Thank you.
If you go out and buy a toy, we've got a couple of, I'm recording this on Thursday. Mm-hmm. We have the week before Christmas. We have today and tomorrow. We're still going to have Season of Hope available for people to go and give. And just to clear up, so we can do some best practices here, because when people watch this, it may be too late if they watch it later in the week to get anything for an angel tree. But next year, if they want to give, are you saying it's best to, if you want to be super generous, maybe grab more than one angel and just buy exactly what's on there? Is that the best practice for someone to do? If someone's feeling very, very generous, is it better to get multiple angels than one angel and buy even more than what they've asked for?
Multiple angels is even better.
Yeah.
Is even better. Yeah.
And just get what they've asked for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could talk to you all day about this. I don't want to take up all your time, but I want to swing back to the faith element of what we're discussing here. 30 plus years of doing this, 35, you said, right? You've been 35. Part of Celebration. 35 years of doing this, I would think has been both a strengthener and a challenger for your faith along the way. You've had those moments. Tell me about, if you don't mind sharing, just your personal faith walk, for lack of a better term, in 35 years of doing this, where you felt like you were when you started faith-wise and where you felt like you are now.
Well, as I mentioned, my parents were Salvation Army officers. My grandparents were Salvation Army officers.
You were raised in it.
I was raised in it. And with any pastor's kid, we called them OKs, officers' kids. I had to come to a point in my own life where I had to make it personal and not just my parents' faith. And I did that early on in my life at a Salvation Army camp. and said, yes, I want this Jesus to be a part of my life, and had transformative moments in my life when I went to a Christian college for a couple of years, where that became also my own rather than my parents. But with any journey, a journey has ups and downs. And there have been times when I've been on the mountaintop and times when I've been in the valley, but I have never, I've been very grateful because I know this is not the story of a lot of people, but I have never felt in the dark night of the soul, as some have called it. I've always felt God's presence, even in the very, very difficult times. I mean, there have been, as with everybody's life, very difficult times. I had a massive stroke, 2 massive strokes in 2009, and was told that there was no way I would live. And climbing out of that, learning to read again, being able to talk articulately again, was a challenge. And some might say, why would God do that? I say, why would God save me? And difficulties. My husband has had chronic illness for 20 years, and living 15 years every single day, wondering if I'm going to find him dead, has been a challenge. So even in those, as I recited again this morning, that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because God is with me. His rod and his staff comforts me. So I think anybody who's walking any kind of journey, especially a faith journey, has difficult times, but I focus on those, what I call Ebenezer's. In the Bible, there was a memorial stone called Ebenezer, and I remember those. I'm going to try not to preach here, but
no, you're doing fine.
In the Bible, over and over again, God says, remember, remember, remember. And I think that's because we as human beings forget. Oh, remember when you were going to die from a stroke. Remember when I saved you in this situation. Remember that I've sustained your husband through these years and he's now fully functioning. Remember, because we forget. And that's my faith journey, that these Ebenezer stones, these memorial stones, remember what I've done when things get really, really difficult. How are we going to raise enough money for the greater need? How are we going to continue to share Jesus when, like every other church in this country, the people are not coming on Sundays or considering this to be their church, and there are so many walking away from faith? How are we going to do that? Turn to those Ebenezer stones. So that is that's my journey.
It sounds as though it mirrors a lot of what you've been describing, almost the message to people, that you're being encouraged to remember what has been done for you on a regular basis. And it sounds like one of your primary functions for the entire Salvation Army is to remind people what is out there. And there's an interesting correlation there.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, I said I could take your whole day, and I apologize for that. I'm thankful for the time you've given me, but I'm going to give you a chance to make a pitch. For the people who watch this, they're likely going to see this in the week leading up to Christmas. This is going to be up on Sunday morning, the week before Christmas. What do you tell people, whether it's a red kettle, maybe too late for an angel tree, but what do you tell people this time of year that you hope that they will carry with them and that they'll remember moving forward?
Oh, a variety of things. Number one, we're so grateful for the thousands and thousands of people who speak into the lives of the lost and hurting, because they have been generous to us, the Salvation Army. They've joined with us in that, in giving hope to people, whether it's volunteering or donating funds, or even joining the Salvation Army church. We're grateful for that. But for those who aren't doing that, or even those who are right there in the fringes, and I'm giving, but I don't even know what I'm giving to. What I say is, come find out who we are. Come ask us. Come check us out. Check us out on a Sunday. Check us out during the week. Come ask for a tour, especially in the summer at our Three Trails camp out in Independence, and see the lives that are being changed at that camp. Come find out about our adult rehabilitation center that is here, where lives are changed through an alcohol and drug rehabilitation program. Come get a tour at our warehouse to see all of our canteens that we deploy in the midst of disasters, but also every single week through our Honk and Holler program, where we're feeding people under the bridges and in locations where they can't come to us. So come find out about us. And finally, again, we're so grateful for the people who speak into the lives of people through the vehicle of the Salvation Army. It's not about us. It's not about me, Kelly Collins. It's about the people we serve, and we are the conduit.
Well, I can tell you just from the conversation today, my hope and prayer for me personally is that I will hear the little bell ringing in June and July and May, and not just in November and December. So I can't thank you enough for your time. Major Kelly Collins from Salvation Army here in Kansas City. Major Collins, thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you, and thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you.